Okay, so yesterday we have looked through what is a visual perception. So basically we're starting from anatomy of the eyes, and the most important part of our color perception and night vision is cones and rod. For the color perception, cone is the most important thing. So we have three different types of cones: red, green, blue. So one of your first essay, 5% of your course credit will cover is if someone or if one of the cones are not working properly, what will happen? So can we see the same visual perception as we can see right now, or whether our color perception might be different, or any other things? So that is your first essay, which doesn't have any right answer. So I want to see your opinion, but must be sensible. Okay, you need your interpretation, your account based on your research. Okay, you are the independent researcher from now on. Okay, you have to research by yourself. Of course, if you have some question, you can email me or pop into my office. Okay, so you learn how these kinds of visual perception, in particular color perception, is working. Okay, and then end of the yesterday lecture, we mentioned about the Gestalt visual perception. So that is one of the branch in object perception or mental structure in visual perception. So these four principles or role has been widely cited by many of the Gestalt principles as proximity, similarity, good continuation, and closure. Okay, so example which you may see many times from my lecture slide is when you see this one. Okay, you can have the proximity. So when you see this one, many people just simply say that is 4 columns rather than 8 different lines. Okay. And this one is similarity, so we can have a very structured visual perception with cross and circle. This one is continuation, right? So everyone will say this one is 2 lines, line A and B, line C and D. So intentionally, instinctively we recognize this object with a 2 line A, B, C, D rather than A, O, C, B, O, D. It is awkward, right? So last one is closure. Interesting thing about the closure is, even though we don't know exactly that part of the circle, that part of the object, many of you will see this one is a circle, is overlapped by this smaller circle. We don't know exactly how it happens, like a spiky one in somewhere, but you just simply say this one is 2 circles. One is background, the other one is foreground, so that is overlapped. Right. So this one is widely used in many of the information design, so we can find many examples. This one is ATM example. Okay, ATM. So we have soft keys in here, some information. Okay, looks like button, but it's not touch screen. Okay, just the button looks like button. And actual control is we have 6 controls in here. Of course, we have another bottom one too, so 8 controls. So you are not learning how to use ATM, right? Is anyone read to manual to use the ATM? The ATM, cash machine. Bank cash machine. In Korean, what is in Korean? ATM, okay. Proper Korean, right? So ATM. So how you can choose the language? This one is not touch screen. Nobody read the manual to use the ATM. How we know it? How to use the ATM? Oh, Yongjun, 51. How do we know how to use the ATM? How can you choose the English?
I can't touch the screen, so.
Oh, this one is not touch screen.
So I will touch near side.
So how, why human, exactly what Yongjun did, how people can choose this button rather than this button to control English. Huh?
What is
Huh? The reason is that is close. So we're trying to make a continuation between control and to be controlled. Okay, we're trying to make a link. If the control is farther away from the to be controlled object, we are confused. We intentionally and instinctively believe control and to be controlled may be closer together. Right? So that's why we simply try and error to click this one. And since then, we learn how to use ATM simply. But now it's much better using touch screen, right? The bad example is this one. So we don't know exactly how to click, where to click, what to click, isn't it? That is a kind of violation on the visual perception. So when you make an ATM like this one, or any of the product or any of the services you have to make as industrial engineers, you have to think about, okay, simply, okay, we have human perception is continuation between controlled and to be controlled. So better example is, of course, isn't it? Touch screen. It looks like button, but it doesn't look like button. So the better information design might be you can make these information, it looks like button, to be clicked or to be hold it down or something. Right. That is the part of the Gestalt cycle. We can explain furthermore about that. First quiz is this one. Okay, I will give it 1 minute. The question is, a participant is shown a series of stimuli and is asked to name the color of the ink in which the stimuli are printed. The 8th stimuli happens to be printed in green ink. We should expect a relatively slow response if the stimulus happen to be, which means what happens? Which one most difficult to read or identify the color? The answer is C. Why C? That is called Stroop Effect. Okay, that is called the Stroop Effect. Say, if the color is green and text is green, that is duplicated, consistent information. So it is much faster. But in number C, if the text is red or color in green, say we can, these two information, one is color and the other one is text information, is in conflict. Okay, colliding each other, so it takes time to identify the color. That's why when you make a mobile phone or any icon, something like that, you have to provide right information in dual code. Okay, every information is multi-dimension. It can be color, it can be text information, it can be image, it can be another contextual meaning. That's why the exit sign is depending on different culture. Do we have any exit sign in here? No, nothing in here. But America and Europe has a different color coding for the exit. The most of European countries use a green color for exit. America use red color for exit. So there's a cultural difference too. But that is first one. Okay. Second question comes up. Okay, second question is, you are most likely to cause an auto accident, car accident, if you are talking on a phone while you are driving. Then you are not using a mobile phone. This is best interpreted in terms of pop-out defect, limited capacity of our memory or our human resources, okay, change blindness, and Stroop effect. Which one is it? Okay. Let's go, same wise, give it 1 minute. So fast. See? Practice make you perfect. Come on. Yes. Okay. Oh, 92%. Very good. So, the reason why we can't do driving while we mobile phone is we have limited capacity on what? Visual perception? Yonghyun, limited capacity of what? Visual perception? No, it's attention. Okay? So we can't pay attention to many things at one time. As you say, many people say we can't do the multitasking, right? But actually it isn't. Can you do that? At the same time? Different motion things? While you're doing this one, you can't do the multitasking. Very difficult to do it. So, many situations, many people believe that we do multitasking, but actually the task performance is getting worse. So, which means you have to focus one thing to finish it. Okay, anyway, that is the most important part of our assumption in information design. Human has a limited capacity, so when you make an information or product, you have to make something within human resources. Okay? Third question might be more interesting. Okay, color coding. The color perception. The part of the human eye which is sensitive to the light and pass the stimuli to the brain to produce color vision is called rod cone blind spot cornea. Okay? Same wise, give it 1 minute. Okay, 82%. That is what? Cones. Cone is for the color perception and rod for what? Rod. Black and white. Night vision. Okay? That is automatically linked to the next question says we rely on what when driving in the late evening and night? Road vision or color vision, cone vision, temporal vision? It must be very simple answer. So I reduce this one 30 seconds. Yeah! Oh. We have to find who he is. I think one person. Okay. So that's the quiz. We're just doing these kinds of quiz in mostly every week. Likewise, these quizzes. Thank you very much. You are perfectly good. Okay, so the Gestalt principle or Gestalt law is not simply 2D image perception. Sometimes it can apply for 3D perception. Also, our feature analysis, which I can explain later on, can also apply to the 3D image. In particular, Palma start with the object perception based on the Gestalt psychology, like this one. So when this picture is shown, this one, okay, this one is more clear, okay. When this picture is shown to the participant, and then sometime later, this participant will ask whether they seen either or this picture. They ask them. We asked them and found that many people recognize they have seen this part and this part. However, very little, just few people is choose they have seen this picture, which means when you see this picture, okay, by the Gestalt psychology, this one is closer, isn't it? And this one is continuation. Okay, better way for our perception. That's why people instinctively recognize this one has a two shape. One is closure shape and the other one is linked line. So that is more natural. So that is kind of supporting evidence for our Gestalt understanding. Okay? Okay, that's what I want to mention. This one I interpreted about ATM design too. Okay, so this one is, I mentioned that is advanced design in terms of Gestalt or to be controlled and control, much easier. So Gibsons Affordance is another visual perception theory, okay, to interpret all the objects indicate us, but let us know this one is particular object as well as what can we do with this one. When you see the pencil, everyone see that is pencil, but Gibson's furthermore to go on say pencil is writable. That is our visual perception. He extended our visual perception, not simply object, extended to the action. Interesting perception. See? So this one will be covered in week 3. Again, next week, because Gibsons Affordance is being widely used in robot design, in another artificial intelligence approach. Okay, feature analysis is used in the machine vision for robot design, but affordance concept is latest approach for developing the machine vision in robot. Okay, we can come back next week. So this one I just skip for your self-study. So now it's a little bit more detail. So how we can make a computational model for our visual perception. Okay? So computer scientists, they have dreamed about we can make really human-like robot or intelligence. Okay, one of the major barriers is how computer or a robot can see the object and then they can recognize object. So we can recognize this one simply as can, right? But robot is very difficult to recognize this one as a can. How? So one of the theory which we supported computer scientists is template matching model. This one is theory, falsifiable theory. The older theory is not true. Okay, it might be wrong, like a theory of relativity in Korean 상대성 이론. Okay, that might be wrong. That is called the theory. Evolution theory. It might be wrong, but I mean we developed the theory because we want to interpret all the phenomena. Okay, most of the situation. That's why one of the theories is template matching theory, which means we don't know exactly, but maybe our brain has a heaps of template to match. Example. So we start from the example. One of the theories is this one. Look at the A and C. Okay, perhaps in our brain, we have A letter template. We don't know where it is, but might be somewhere. Okay, and this one also, the L is somewhere in our brain. So when you see A, that A coming through to your eyes and then match one of your brain part so that we recognize A. That's why many of the computational model has heaps of template. Okay, so for example, they have heaps of different types of cans. Okay, in computer intelligence. So they're recording heaps of database, and then every time they have to match with what you have just seen to read your computer program. Right? It takes ages. If you have millions different types of cans in your database, it takes ages. But that is the only way we can give intelligence to the robot. That is template matching. Okay, so we go back to the theory, say, assume that the image of an object is transmitted to the brain and that attempt is made to compare it with stored patterns in your brain. This pattern is called a template. Example, this one. So, many situations, template matching theory is widely used in many of the computer intelligence, such as machine vision system for the pattern recognition, And another example is Fmri pattern recognition. So you read the textbook. In textbook say, when you have MRI, you know the MRI is medical equipment, but Fmri is not medical equipment for the research purpose. So they can take a photo of the Fmri, and then we can recognize which part of the brain is activated, which one is a neurocognition, neuropsychology. So nowadays, major branch in cognitive psychology is one of them is what we do like that experiment, and the other one is using Fmri, neuropsychology. Okay. So one of the practical example is captcha code. Say this one. We can recognize it. Computer cannot recognize it yet. So we recognize this one as a certain letters. A computer is really hard because they don't have any template yet. So that lead to major problem in machine system, machine vision system, or computer intelligence. Human can recognize many different types of things. So we recognize this one as A, right? Any type. Okay, we recognize this one is A. Okay, many people has a different handwriting. Computer can recognize that kinds of things as A, but human can do it. Why? Template matching theory cannot explain these kinds of phenomena. That's why another group of researchers developing the new theory called feature analysis. Say, like this one. A has a horizontal line. Okay, I can use this example. If you look at the A, that is horizontal line in here. Okay, and diagonal, two diagonal. Okay, there is intersection. Okay, likewise in here. Okay, using these kinds of all the object can be represented in a certain features. That is one of the feature analysis technique. Powerful. It is really powerful to make a computer intelligence. Very good. But sometimes that has also a problem. Whether we do real human perception or visual perception can be done like this feature analysis. Okay, two different approach. Say, in many of the science. Okay, this template matching one is called the top-down approach. Starting from the top, the bigger one, to the smaller one. Feature analysis is the other way around, say bottom-up. So starting from the small feature, and then they can recognize big A, the final outcome. So top-down approach and bottom-up approach, many scientific research methods must be combined. But at this time, these two theory is a major theory to explaining our visual perception, how people can recognize object. One is template matching, the other one is a feature analysis. Which one is right? No idea. Your job. That is your job to do this kind of research. Okay, so feature analysis summarized for you. Say stimuli are thought as combination of element feature so that we can perceive an object in our long-term memory to find the features. The problem is, one of the problem of feature analysis, they say long-term memory, right? Long-term memory is take time to access. Short-term memory, which we will cover week 4 and 5, short-term memory is really fast. Like your cache memory in your computer, and very expensive. But long-term memory is your RAM in computer, very slow, but cheaper, but very slow. That's why, is it true to say whether features are stored in the long-term memory? Because we recognize this one as a speaker very quickly, but if you go into the long-term memory, it takes time. So it may not work in terms of where that information is stored. Nobody knows yet. Your job for your research. Okay, and then they are comparing many of the features with the stored features in your long-term memory. Okay, that is advantage over the template model. It's much simpler model, and we can easily interpret the extraction of the feature to recognize object. And it is possible to specify relationship between the features for pattern recognition. So pattern recognition is using many of these feature analysis. The example of pencil sorting yesterday, that is also the example using the feature analysis. Okay. A problem is we have complex handling is needed, cognitive workload for your self-study. Okay, so far that is two-dimensional visual perception. Now as we go into the visual perception for 3D object, the similar concept. Pattern recognition, the template matching and feature analysis is widely used to interpret the 3D visual perception, but our John Anderson using the feature analysis for 3D recognition. Okay, Biedermann proposed 3 sub-stages. That is not much important. The point is, every 3D object can be represented with many different types of geons, like a component. Okay, horse, human, ostrich, giraffe, and ape, and dog, like that. We can have human can recognize this one as a giraffe using this shape of the component, the geons. Of course, in added up with the colors or patterns of the animal, like a giraffe has heaps of dot. Okay, that kinds of things also added up, but Biedermann proposed that our 3D visual perception also can be interpreted by feature analysis, the component theory. So 36-page category of the sub-object called the geon. So he developed these kinds of 36 geons for representing all the 3D objects. Okay, and then they do some suggestion or theory. And following up this one, Biedermann is to supporting what he thought is right. He made an experiment. If the component theory is right, okay, if his theory is right, when they recognize the complete object, okay, which one is better perception? Okay, they show to the participant about this one, and the other group see these types of information. Okay, and then they measure the response time. See, when the component is deleted, their response time is much faster. Okay, so this one is better than this one. That means it's supporting his theory. What is his theory? His theory is component. Every 3D object can be made by the 36 geons. Okay, so this one only have a certain geon, can read a couple of geons, but this one doesn't make any geons. Right? And then he made an experiment to find the response time, say, okay, when certain component, certain geon was deleted, they are finding the information right, much quickly. Okay, that is the idea of the visual perception. And pattern recognition is the really debatable, really hot potato in computer science, because we have to identify the terrorist. Okay, in particular America, all the source of money, the research funding goes into the face recognition, and face recognition also being used for many identification technology. So I prepared some of the practical example.
Scientists are on a manhunt for a criminal. An FBI wanted poster arrives from headquarters. The wanted man's name is Thomas O'Connor. Thomas, that's right. O'Connor has committed bank fraud, embezzling hundreds of millions of dollars from banks around the world. They enter O'Connor's face into the recognition database. Using facial recognition software tied to millions of webcams placed on streets and buildings around the world, a global hunt begins.
Like you? Okay.
United States through New York.
Look at the buildings.
Yeah, of course. Every building in the city appears in 3 dimensions, allowing a bird's eye view.
Let's check out the banks.
Layered banks.
They ask the computer to show the location of every bank in New York.
I think we need to focus on one area. And Broadway.
Let's check out this street video.
They scour Times Square, but there's no sign of O'Connor. They head to the financial district.
I'm gonna take this area.
Okay, that's actually quite a big area. There's a lot of activity.
It'll be good to check if there's any webcam cameras.
Thousands of webcams scan for a glimpse of O'Connor. And then, pay dirt. A sensor goes off. A camera spots O'Connor in the hallway of a bank building. He walked this hallway only seconds before. They have found his face amid a sea of millions of other faces.
The report says that he's around this area.
Yep, likewise, we can use the face recognition techniques for, the suspect hunt or that sort of thing. So there is a couple of the discussion topic in our textbook, but you have to read it. Okay, but just I want to show the pattern recognition is a really hot potato in computer scientists and cognitive psychologists. In our textbook is that John Anderson is saying something very strange comment, say human has a certain mechanism to face recognition. The animal doesn't have face recognition. A human can have a certain mechanism. So that's why that is really hot potato, whether that is existing, how we can use this existing mechanism, if it is, how we can use it. So that is what the John Anderson is looking for, certain answer for face recognition. So now I'm talking to some of audio perception. Our textbook doesn't say anything about audio perception. Did I include audio perception in your? Oh, yeah. Okay. So audio perception, simply I prepared for small video clip to understand the anatomy of audio.
The ear has 3 parts, the outer ear or auricle, the middle ear, and the inner ear. The auricle, the visible part of the ear, collects sound waves and directs them to the auditory canal. The auditory or ear canal is lined with cilia and ceruminous glands. The earwax from the ceruminous gland and the cilia protect the ear from entry by foreign matter. The thin tympanic membrane separates the outer ear from the middle ear. Sound waves cause it to vibrate. The 3 tiny bones of the middle ear are the hammer or malleus, anvil or incus, and stapes or stirrup. These bones pick up the vibrations from the tympanic membrane and transmit them to the inner ear. The eustachian tube of the middle ear opens into the pharynx and permits air pressure to equalize between the ear and the outside air. The inner ear is maze-like, consisting of bony and membranous structures surrounded by fluid. The semicircular canals are fluid-filled bony loops that help maintain our body's balance. The cochlea is a fluid-filled, snail-shaped structure that houses the organ of corti, the true organ of hearing. The fluid aids in the transmission of the vibrations. The organ of corti changes the vibrations into nerve impulses that are picked up by the auditory nerve. Sound waves are collected by the auricle, or outer ear, and sent to the auditory canal, tympanic membrane, ear bones, and then to the cochlea, where the vibrations are changed by the organ of corti to nerve impulses and transmitted by the auditory or cochlear nerve to the temporal lobe of the brain for interpretation.
Okay, that's how our ears is working for that. Okay, I'm just keeping slightly quickly because we don't have time much. But basically for the audio perception air have to reach the membrane of the ear. So basically all the sound wave has a change in air pressure. So we just perceive the air pressure on our ears, okay, to recognize the sound. That's why you can hear me. Okay, sound wave, oh sorry, I will replay again. The sound wave can be classified in 2 different waves. One is pure tone and the other one is harmonic. So you can just simply read it. The sound example is this one. Pure tone is this one. But harmonic is slightly different. So certain waves are combined using a Fourier analysis, which I have no idea what it means. The technique, okay? Your engineering mathematics, I hate it, but you probably like it. So physical dimension of any sound can have amplitude, wavelengths, and frequency. That is your physical activity, physics studies. Okay, that is it. But that is physical perception, and physical dimension, our perceptual dimension are different. Like RGB, the red, green, blue is computer reproduction, color reproduction mechanism for physical dimension, but we are not using RGB in our perception. We're using HESB, isn't it? Hue, saturation, brightness. That's why your color, red, green, that kind of thing is your hue. Okay, saturation and brightness is what we perceive rather than RGB, such as R222, G123, B235, 212. We don't recognize color like that. We just simply say this one is pink, red. Likewise, physical dimension of sound is good for your physics, but not for your perception. So, perceptual dimensions, we have three things: pitch, loudness, timbre. That's why we want to learn about the three things. Pitch, loudness, and timbre is the different perceptual dimension of our auditory information. So, step by step, pitch. Okay? So our auditory perception can only hear 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, 20K hertz. I found an example. So for you, it's the audio test. Okay, so I'm starting with a low pitch sound. Okay.
10 hertz,
10 hertz.
20, 30,
You can hear it.
40,
Here?
50,
Can you hear the 50 hertz sound?
60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130,
Yeah.
140, 150, 160,
Now you can hear it, most of you.
170,
Otherwise, you have to go to the doctor.
190, 200.
Oh, see, Jungian start with, when you hand the raise, you hear the sound, right? Around 15 hertz, right? So he has a slightly longer, wider, the hearing spectrum. That's good. Okay? But we started from the top to bottom then. High pitched sound. So
22 kilohertz,
22 kilohertz, you never heard.
21K,
21K.
20K, 19K, 18K, 17K, 16K,
Oh, you hear that?
K,
Okay, I stopped it.
14K, 16K.
See? Oh, it can be hurt your ears, so I'm just turned off. So some people start from the 21K and some people can hear the 19, but I never heard it. Such a high-pitched sound. Okay? That's why in the first week I played about video clip, the silent ringtone. So when you're young, you can hear the high-pitched sound, but when you're getting older like me, you can't hear the high-pitched sound. When I test this one, I started with around 16K. I cannot hear more than 16K hertz. But some of you heard about 20, right? 20K, see? So young people can hear that, and I can't. That is about the pitch, your perception. I'm trying to read the loudness. Loudness is strange things. When you say the volume up and down, that is called, simply relevant with the loudness. But interesting part is your anchoring point is important. Anchoring point means a starting point. Okay, so I can reduce each decibel when you play this one. And you can see the different sound. You can hear the different sound. I can noise by 1 decibel decrease. See, you can hear that the loudness is getting smaller, isn't it? But when I reduce the same thing, but only 0.3 decibel, you probably not see any difference or hear any difference. See? When you hear the first sound and the 1 decibel decreases, you can see the difference. But when you have a 0.3 decibel decrease, you cannot hear the difference much. Of course, it's final. The first and final is totally different sound, but you can't hear much the difference when the sound is up and down in a loudness, the wider things, the high loudness stuff. That is about pitch and loudness, and most interesting part is timbre. It's really interesting thing. It's the same pitch and same loudness. We can make it with your synthesizer or whatever any instrument you can make it. But interesting part of the human ear is we can differentiate between the instrument sound even though it is same pitch and same loudness. How come? That's why some people suggest there might be timbre. So when you have a wave forms in here, flute looks like that, and clarinet looks like that. See? More example, violins, trumpet, horn, clarinet. So seeing is believing, right? So I can just use some of the example. I made 6 different synthesizer sound for the spectrum envelope. This one is called the spectrum envelope. So I will play the 6 sound, but people can hear the differences. Isn't it? One more? See, depending on the spectrum envelope, we can hear the different sound. Of course, our vocal sound is different. Say, okay. See, some sound is different because the spectrums are different, so that's we captured it. So that is the interesting part. Say how we can recognize voice. Voice recognition system is another big issues in computer science. So when you use the telephone banking, right? When you use the telephone banking, you just call to them and they say something, right? But of course you can just call to the operator. But in many, the banking system has an independent voice recognition system. How this happen? How we can make it? So Yongjun's voice and my voice is different. Okay, how they recognize my voice as the iche, the transfer, money transfer, iche. Can you say the iche? Yeah. See, voice is different, but the banking system recognize this one is all iche, right? Transfer. How come? So they have heaps of spectrum already recorded in their database. Of course, they are picturing many of the people's voice, so that when some people say iche, the female voice and male voice is also different. They are training their database to capture many different sound of iche or transfer. That's why when I bought some of the voice recognition system from my country, the English country, say they cannot recognize my English because I'm not proper English accent when they training their application. They have heaps of different accent. The Scottish accent, Canadian accent, American accent, New Zealand, Australia, but they don't have any Korean English accent yet. So that's why, that is independent voice recognition system, and another one is dependent voice recognition system. So it takes a 30 or 40 minute training your voice with the computer application. If you want to use it, I have one application in my office. So you can training this application to recognize your voice. But it take ages, like 30 or 40 minutes. Nobody wants to use this kind of system if this one is applied to the banking system. That's why banking system use independent voice recognition system. But many of translation application being used in United Nations meeting, okay, or international meeting, they are using dependent voice recognition system. They are training this application, and then they can use properly. So this one is kind of what we have to use to voice recognition system. Also, some of the example you might interest. Okay. Okay. Starting point is different. So even though similar sound, everything is very similar, but when they start with a frequency difference. Amplitude, so that is amplitude envelope, so I can play around. See? Or play all. See? Also same wise. So this one is the timbre and amplitude envelope. And certain features in our auditory perception is being used to develop some of the application. The ba something. Yeah. Okay, that is most of the audio perception. But as I can tell you, that is this audio perception is not much being developed or studied yet. Okay, visual perception is our dominant information in our perception. So that's why many of the studies done on visual perception rather than audio perception. But interesting part is nowadays more audio perception is more important in system development. That's why Google is trying to develop some of the audio search engine. NHN do, okay? So many of the computer scientists' next dream is you can just search something like that. If you just sing a part of the song, they can find what song is. Okay? But at this time, we have using only indexed information, like visual text information. But if audio information is perfectly can be searched, this might be useful information for your development. Okay, that is all sort of audio perception. Now is the final section of our chapter 2 is context. The two things about context, whether context help in our visual perception. Okay, the example is this one. Okay, these two letters is really similar. One of them is H. The other one is A. Because context. Okay? So the context in this case is the word. Okay? Say this one, TAE is I never seen TAE. So most frequent word is THE. That's why we see these similar, looks like A is to CH. But in here, CHTs you probably rarely seen, so that's why we see this one is cat, because that is dominant context word. In that case, we have two competing theory in context, word context. One is word superiority test. Word superiority. And the other one is missing word effect. These two things are in conflict. The first one is this example. Word is superior context. Okay, so the people can simply recognize this one is the cat. The context, the word context lets you know this one is the cat. Another example for the missing word example is this one. Oh, sorry. Can you read this one? Can you read it? You can, right? The proper sentence is this one. Okay, no typos. But even though we just simply swap couple of letters, you can recognize it. You can see the sentence, isn't it? So that is a missing word effect. Even though word is superior, we can perceive, we can read the sentence, even though that is not the perfect word or perfect thing. So many of the cognitive psychology understanding has a duplicated meaning. One is, I mean, it's not duplicate. It's some kind of conflict theory. So in that case, context is important, but sometimes context might not be so much important. Which one is right? No idea. Both of them make sense. So, which means even though, okay, this one, we can read it. We can read this one without any contextual information, but this one has a contextual information we're using it. Perhaps we are selectively using it. That's why in next week we're talking about attention. Okay? Attention proposed two different theories. One is filter theory and second one is attenuation theory. Using this theory, we can interpret whether context is important or not. So using either filter theory or attenuation theory. Cocktail party effect. Have you heard about cocktail party effect? Oh? Cocktail party effect, really famous effect. We have heaps of effect in psychology actually. The cocktail party effect is this one. When I'm talking to Yongjun, okay, in the party, right, drinking normally, binge drinking. But suddenly if someone, which I never attention to anyone, but suddenly someone talking about my name, so my attention goes there, right? But I'm talking the fully intention with Yongjun, right? Keep talking with him. But suddenly Rizzo talking about Blake. Suddenly my attention goes to Rizzo. How this happen? That is cocktail party effect. Say attention. We don't know exactly. Say all the information might be come to my ears, okay? But I intentionally filter out some of the information while I'm talking with Yongjun. But that information is still coming into my ears, but suddenly, some information which is relevant to myself, attention goes into my name. Okay, so that is kind of filter theory. So when you read the text, the cat things, we need to pay attention. So when you pay attention, some of the attention goes into the context. But when you read this sentence, okay, your attention is not goes into the context. You're simply trying to make sense this whole sentence. Okay, depending on your theory, depending on your attention stance, which one might work. Sometimes context is working, sometimes isn't. Say, some of the experiment is this one. If you just deleted some part of it, people can see this one is work rather than warm. See? When you're hiding many of them, it's really hard to understand what it means. It could be N, it could be W. So, our textbook is talking about the word superior text, the superior recognition of the letter in a word context and alone, but another contrasting evidence is missing word effect. So I can interpret these two things with attention in next week. Okay? Okay, that's it. So, and then our textbook talking about some of the model, computational model, Massaro's ML model for combination of context and feature information. You can have a look. Okay, other example in pattern recognition is this one. Context information is this one. Say, it is really hard to find hammer or banana. Banana in here. But I mean, your context say, oh, that is junk box. You never see this one, any fruit in this box, right? If you want to recognize banana in here, you have to really pay attention to them. Otherwise, you can't see it because this whole context say, oh, no bananas in here. But when you see the fruit box, you can easily find the bananas. Context might be filter out some of the information through your eyes. Okay, that is cooperative experimentation has been done. Say when some context information is given, people can really quickly identify the object. No context given, it takes time. Okay, that's it. That's the whole things about chapter 2. You have to read the chapter 2. We're going to have another 3 or 4 quizzes is next week, and next week talking about attention. Okay.